Welcome home, Linda. The room was a mess, so I cleaned it up for you. Why did you do that? When I got home, not a single item was left in my room, I said, shocked. My son's wife entered the room laughing. There's no need to be so shocked. I did it for the good of the house. I couldn't understand her laughter and actions. Where are my things? Over there, she said, pointing outside. I saw flames rising in the yard. Then it hit me. I ran outside barefoot to find my clothes and personal belongings being burned. What shocked me more was seeing a painting given to me by my late husband among the flames. Now it was nice and clean. Looking at my daughter-in-law, I realized she was controlled by malice. Do you know what you've done? Of course. No need to look so scared, she replied casually. Her smirk made it clear she wasn't joking. Are you trying to drive me out? No, I'm just exterminating a parasite, she said, her words chilling me. That's when I made a decision. Then I'll leave. And so I left the house, but I wasn't alone in this. Everything was now in place. I swore on my late husband's grave that I would never forgive her. My revenge against my eldest son's wife had begun. My name is Linda Adams, and I'm turning 60 this year. Ever since I lost my beloved husband to cancer 2 years ago, I've been living alone. After he passed away, I felt a great void. But I'm finally getting used to living by myself again. One last thing for me to do. Linda, a gift should be arriving at your house soon. Those were my husband's last words. I reminisce about the times I had with him. He was a hard-working businessman at a well-known company, and our meeting came about through a mutual acquaintance. But we quickly hit it off and smoothly progressed to marriage. Since then, it has been nothing but bliss. We've got our son now. I've got to work even harder, I said, thinking about our family. Yeah, but don't overdo it. I have a precious wife and son to look after, my husband replied. At 28, I gave birth to our son, John, and 4 years later, our daughter, Emily, was born. I worked hard every day as a homemaker, which was also my husband's wish. He acknowledged my efforts, and as a result, he left us more than enough savings and assets. However, even in such a life, changes occur. I'll be coming back home soon. Isn't your work too hectic? My husband asked. No, it's settled down now, so it's fine. And I know it's short notice, but I'm thinking of coming back next Saturday, he said. That's fine. I'll be home. I was looking forward to seeing John. It had been a while, but I had forgotten something important. Then, on Saturday, he came home. Welcome back. You must be tired. Take it easy, I said, greeting him. Hello, Linda. It's been a while, he replied. I had completely forgotten, but I was not fond of John's wife, Julie. She had been looking down on me and making snide remarks even before they married. Welcome, Julie, I offered, but it felt strained. Julie seemed to catch on and gave a smirk. We're planning to stay over tonight, so please take care of us, Julie said, making herself comfortable as if it were her own home. It almost seemed as if she was testing how comfortable our house was. In the end, they stayed for 2 days, and it was a continuous strain on my heart. I thought that would usher in the return of peaceful daily life. But that was quickly about to change. Mom, I need to talk to you about something, my son said about a week later. I had a bad feeling. Actually, Julie has. Hold on a sec. I took a deep breath. Sorry, what about Julie? Oh, right. So Julie wants to live with you. Live together, my son said. It was totally unexpected. I asked for the reason. I thought it was sudden too and wondered why. But it seems she's worried about you. Worried? I couldn't help but wonder if that were true. Why hadn't she reached out herself? I told her you were fine, but she won't listen. I see. How are things between you and Julie then? I asked. I think we're okay, he said. But he sounded less than enthusiastic. I thought it was bad to burden my son like this and made a suggestion. Then I'll just tell Julie myself that she can't live with us. If I say it directly, she'll give up. Right after hanging up, I looked up at the ceiling. Living with my daughter-in-law was out of the question. Her snooping around my house before must have been her scoping it out for moving in. With that in mind, I just couldn't accept her proposal. Hello, Julie. About the living together thing, I contacted her the next day. I wanted to settle things quickly before they got more complicated. You heard from John, didn't you? Her voice was clearly excited. She must have thought living together was a possibility. I've heard the story, so we can't live together, I said firmly. There was a moment of silence. She must have been shaken. Why not? As you get older, wouldn't it be better for you to have someone around? She suggested. Maybe so, but I'm fine on my own, I replied. Don't say that. I'm really worried about you, she said, her concern appreciated. But all right, if that's what you want, I said, and it seemed she had accepted it for now. I thought I could return to my peaceful daily life. Indeed, things seemed calm as usual for the next couple of weeks, but Julie hadn't given up yet. Hello there. One afternoon she came over. Julie, what are you doing here? I asked. I've come to talk about a proposal today. Can I come in for a sec? Before getting an answer, she walked right into the house, taking a seat on the couch as if it were her own. She began to speak. How about we try living together for a bit? Excuse me? We've lived together on a trial basis, and then decide if we want to make it a permanent arrangement. If you don't like it, I'll move out, she suggested. I racked my brain desperately. A wrong decision now could lead to irrevocable consequences. Does John know about this? Oh, don't worry about that, she replied, then began to call my son. I waited for the phone call to end, pondering what to do next. John says to talk to you. Here you go, she said, handing me the phone. Hello, John. Mom, I'm really sorry. I had no idea Julie would go to you. What are you going to do? I'm okay with living together, but don't get me wrong. I'm not agreeing with Julie's idea. I just think it's a good way to get her to give up, he explained. There was a certain logic to his thoughts. We could live together for a while and find the right time to say no. All right, let's do that, I agreed. Deep down, I feared Julie might disrupt our home. But if things went south, she could just leave. And so our living together began. At first, everything was peaceful. Things changed when John started spending more time away from home due to work. Sorry, I'm too busy to help out around the house right now, he said. Don't worry about it. Instead, I'll take care of the expenses. Don't fuss over it. Leave it to me, Julie replied. Soon after he left for a long business trip, and as if she had been waiting for him to leave, her attitude changed dramatically. Are you not so good at cooking? She asked during one of our meals together. What? Well, it just feels a bit dated and plain. Even dog food might be better, she laughed mockingly, revealing her true colors. From then on, all pretense was dropped. Another day, as I was sorting out the laundry in the living room, she exclaimed, Hey, did you mix our laundry together again? It's not necessary to separate them. She sighed heavily. When you mix them, your old lady smell gets on my clothes. Please do mine separately next time. Oh, and rewash mine, will you? Hey, where do you think you're going? I've got plans with friends, she announced abruptly, leaving me to tend to the chores alone. She never lifted a finger to help, preferring to gallivant about instead. I couldn't stand it any longer. Your behavior lately has been too much. I'm going to have to tell John about this, I said, hoping it would calm things down. But she was not a woman to fold so easily. Don't joke with me. I'm here out of the goodness of my heart, she retorted. What on earth was she talking about? Even though Julie's arrival had completely disrupted our daily life, she warned, if you go snitching, it won't end well for you, and threw a picture frame at me, containing a picture of my husband and me. At that moment, everything I had been holding back just overflowed. Okay, I'll be able to get back soon, Mom. We'll talk in detail then, all right. My son said over the phone. 3 months after we started living together, I included everything that had happened in our conversation, including ending the living arrangement. He didn't even seem surprised when I called and readily agreed. It was just 3 days before he was due to return when my daughter, Emily, came back home. Sorry for the suddenness, she said. It's fine. What happened? I asked. As I listened to her, she revealed that her husband's infidelity had led to her divorce. You can stay here for a while. You've been through a lot, after all, I offered, but there was a problem. I explained the current situation to her. So Julie is living with you, right? John is going to be back from his business trip soon, so we will talk things over then, I said. I see. I'm the newbie here, but I'll help out as much as I can, Emily said reassuringly. That night, when Julie arrived home, she asked, Hey, Emily, why are you here? A lot's happened. I'll be staying here for a while, Emily replied. Julie hadn't met my daughter often, but for some reason, she seemed to have taken a liking to her. Seems like Julie is taken to you, so we might use that to our advantage. Indeed, we must be careful not to let on what we're planning, I thought to myself. The next day, my son returned. I'm home, he announced. As I went to greet him at the door, his wife pushed past me, saying, You're in the way. Hey, isn't that a bit dangerous? I said. Just act your age, will you? I mean, you're an old lady, she retorted, laughing while looking at me. At this point, I was truly astounded by her behavior. What are you doing here, Mom? My son asked, noticing my distraction. Just lost in thought, that's all. Emily came back, right? Haven't seen her since Dad's funeral, I replied. She'll probably be back soon then, he said. About an hour later, we had dinner with my daughter, who had just come home. When it was just the two of us, she complained about Julie, but even she can't in this situation. It's been a really long time since we had such a peaceful family meal. My son's wife seemed to be in a better mood and started drinking. Julie, don't you think you're drinking too much? I asked. I'm fine. This is nothing, she replied, dismissing my concern. Is she not good with alcohol? My daughter asked. I don't think that's the case, I replied, but my son's wife continued to pick on me, emboldened by the alcohol. Why don't you have a drink with us? She insisted. I'm not good with alcohol, I said. What? What are you talking about? You can't deny my request, she said, becoming increasingly aggressive. That's enough, right? You're clearly drunk, my daughter intervened. I'm still okay. I'm worried too, I said. In the end, Julie was taken to her room by my daughter. Looks like Julie's gone to sleep. If she's drunk and asleep, she won't be up for a while, so it should be fine, my daughter reassured us. Then it's time for the main event, my son said, and so the three of us talked about Julie. We intended to tell her that we were going to dissolve the living arrangement anyway. Are you okay with that, John? She is your wife, after all, I asked. I had my share of the blame for letting things get out of hand. But what's the right thing to do? My son pondered. We were at our wits' end, and no good ideas came to mind. Then my daughter asked a question. First off, why did Julie want to live with us in the first place? She asked. Hearing that, I indeed wondered. I realized I had never asked her or my son for a clear reason. John, don't you know anything? My daughter pressed. Last time I asked, she said she was worried about Mom, but that's probably a lie. Like, what if it's this house she's after? It's pretty big after all, my son speculated. That could be possible. Even before and after moving in together, I felt like Julie was always sizing up everything in the house, I admitted. So how about this idea? My daughter proposed, and it was a suggestion we hadn't even considered. It might be a burden on Mom, my son pointed out. After a bit of thought, I realized it might be a good way to break the current stalemate. Yeah, since it's Emily's idea, why not go for it? I suggested. What do you think, John? My daughter asked. I'm okay with it too. My son agreed. And so, we each started to make our moves. Of course, this was a secret from John's wife. A week later, everything was ready. However, since there was a chance of being turned down for any number of reasons if I talked about it alone, we decided to bring up the living arrangement issue again, all three of us together. We decided to execute our plan in 2 days. The day before, Julie said, I'm sorry, but I'm going to head out for a bit. When will you be back? I asked. Well, I should be back by the evening, she replied, unusually happy. But I didn't think much of it because by tomorrow, I'd be saying goodbye to this life. The only worry was leaving John's wife at home alone. But I was looking forward to catching up with a friend for the first time in a while and had completely forgotten about that. I'm home, I announced upon my return around 4:00 p.m., but unexpectedly, she came out of my room. Welcome back, Linda. It was dirty, so I cleaned it up for you, my son's wife said as she emerged from my room. Why are you coming out of my room? You'll see if you look, she replied cryptically. What? Why is this happening? I exclaimed, realizing that nothing was left in my room. As I stood there in shock, my son's wife entered the room laughing. You don't need to be so surprised. I did it for the good of the house, she said casually. Her behavior and laughter without a hint of remorse were completely baffling. Where are my things? I demanded. Over there, she pointed, and I followed her gaze to see flames in the yard. That's when it hit me. No way. I ran outside barefoot, only to find my clothes and belongings being burned. Then something truly shocking caught my eye amidst the flames. A painting, a gift from my late husband. This cleans everything up nicely, my son's wife remarked, her face filled with hatred. She had forgotten something important. Who really supports this house? Do you know what you've done? I asked, trying to understand her motives. Of course. Don't look at me like that. You're scaring me, she replied, trying to brush off the gravity of the situation. Don't joke around. Well, there are still things we've got to do, right? She continued with a grin. Are you trying to kick me out? I asked, realizing her intentions. No, I'm just dealing with a parasite, she replied, her words carrying a thinly veiled threat. Despite the sugarcoating, I knew she was talking about me, and so I made a decision. Then I'll leave. I left the house, swearing revenge on my son's wife. Are you really okay with this? Julie had asked me before I left, but I didn't even look at her. I could easily imagine the expression on her face. As I headed to my new place, I called my son and daughter. I'm moving to the new house today, a bit ahead of schedule, I informed them. Got it. I'll tell Emily. Then I'll see you there, my son replied. When I arrived at the new house, I sat on the sofa, feeling a bit excited about starting a new life. About an hour later, John and Emily arrived. I didn't expect such an amazing house. How did you manage to get a place like this? I asked. I asked a friend of your father's, and he said this house was vacant. It kind of resembles our old place too, so I made a quick decision, my son explained. We had a pleasant time, but soon we all wore serious expressions. For now, let's just give Julie the address. Given her nature, she'll definitely come by, I suggested. I'll take care of that. Thanks, my son replied. After a while, I had dozens of messages and missed calls. We're ignoring these, right? I asked. Yes, my son confirmed. We then waited for my eldest son's wife to grow impatient and visit. After spending a few days relaxing in the new place, someone visited us. Looking at the outside through the window, there stood Julie, looking exhausted. She's here. Time to greet her. I'm kind of nervous, I admitted. Don't worry. There are 3 of us, my daughter reassured me. I knew this was the moment of truth. You came, Julie? What's this all about, Linda? What do you mean? She asked as she entered the living room. So all the players were present, and we faced each other in the living room. I didn't know you had so much money, Linda, my son's wife remarked. Well, of course you didn't. I didn't tell you. From now on, we plan to live here together. Sorry for keeping it a secret, I replied. Suddenly, my son's wife's demeanor completely changed to a smile. Perhaps she thought she would be able to live in this house too. Well, you could have said something sooner. Why were you keeping Mom, John? My son's wife asked. Mom told me not to say anything about it, like a surprise, my son explained, trying not to laugh as he watched his wife, who had gotten the wrong end of the stick and was getting all excited. The first to break the news was Emily. Julie, I'm sorry, but it's just going to be us living here. What? Julie's eyes went wide as saucers. Emily's right. There's no place for you in this house. Why not? You destroyed my most cherished memory, Julie protested. That was because you were the one who suggested living together. But I bet you really wanted to drive me out. What were you after, my house or money? I confronted her. My son's wife looked down in silence. She must have hit the nail on the head. But why such a mansion? Did you ask John for this? I questioned. This time, my son interjected, you seem to be under some misconception. But since we've been living together, I haven't paid a cent for living expenses. That's a lie, my son's wife explained. It's not a lie. I didn't want to burden John, so I paid for everything. You wouldn't know that, I explained. Then she started to smile at me ingratiatingly. We got our wires crossed a bit. But there's still time to make it right. Let's start over, my son's wife insisted, going on and on about how much better it would be for her to live with us. Finding the situation absurdly funny, I took her hand and smiled sweetly. You're the parasite. Why don't you take a good look at yourself in the mirror, John? Say something. You're on my side, right? I thought I was. But there's no excuse for this level of awfulness, my son replied, clearly torn. Don't be ridiculous. Why am I the one? Just give it up. No matter how much you beg, this fact won't change, I added firmly. But I will never forgive you for what you did to me, my son's wife protested, desperation evident in her voice. No one in the room was on my son's wife's side, not even her husband. As I watched her face contort with despair, I felt the weight lifting off my shoulders. So, you need to leave this house and that house too. That house too. Well, that house is in my name, and I can't let a stranger live there, she argued. A stranger? You mean sadly, that's the situation, I replied calmly. At that, my son's wife began to scream, throwing and smashing things around her. Call the cops, John. Stop her. Okay, I got it. My daughter quickly phoned the police. Stop this rampage now. Hey, back off. My son intervened, trying to calm the situation. Finally, the chaos was brought under control when my son tackled and restrained his wife. In the end, Julie was escorted away by the police, glaring at us as she got into the squad car. But at this point, there was nothing we could do. I felt no sympathy, just a sense of serves you right. Above all, she was getting her just desserts for ruthlessly destroying the memories of my husband. After everything that's happened, I can't live with her anymore. I have faith that he will handle things well, my son affirmed. I'm counting on you. Afterward, I replied. John and Julie got divorced, of course. It wasn't an easy process. She cried and screamed during the discussions with the lawyers, trying to garner sympathy, but my son dismissed it outright. I was present as well, just astonished by her pitiful display. Cut it out already. Please, keep out of this. It's your fault this is happening. Stop blaming others. You brought this upon yourself, my son asserted firmly. That's right. Just stop it. No matter how much you beg, I'm not changing my mind. That's the way it is, I added, smiling to show that I meant it. Since that day, Julie stopped complaining, and we finally had peace. I felt a slight easing of the guilt I had towards my husband. Turns out, Julie, now evicted and jobless, was hopping from one friend's house to another, having become a housewife upon marrying my son. She had no employment. Is it okay for us to live here now? My son asked tentatively. Indeed. I've said plenty to Julie, but don't worry about it. You're welcome to stay as long as you like, I reassured him. The ashes may remain, but not all memories of my husband have disappeared. From now on, the three of us will walk towards a bright future together.